The spaceship hummed softly as it approached the Vizari homeworld. Dr. Takli stood by the large viewing window, his heart beating fast with excitement. After 5 years of studying the Vizari from afar, he would finally meet them face to face. Amazing, isn't it? Ambassador Hannah Kim joined him at the window. Their planet looks like a jewel. She was right. The Vizari planet glowed with blue oceans and purple-green landmasses. 3 moons hung in the sky above it. I've waited my whole career for this moment, Tak said. He adjusted his uniform and checked his data pad one last time. As the ship's stenoanthropologist, his job was to study the aliens' culture and customs. Hannah nodded. Just remember, we're here to make friends, not just study them. The Vizari are the oldest spacefaring race we've met. They've been exploring the stars for over 50,000 years. While humans have barely left our solar system for a century, Tak added. No wonder Earth Command is so nervous about this meeting. The ship's captain announced their landing, and Tak felt the slight bump as they touched down on the alien world. His assistant, Jun Park, rushed over with their equipment bags. Dr. Lee, I've packed all your recording devices and translation tools, Jun said. The young man's eyes were wide with wonder. Is it true that the Vizari can change the color of their skin? Not exactly, Tak explained. Their skin is naturally iridescent. It reflects light differently based on their emotions. That's why understanding their body language is so important. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss, and bright light flooded in. Tak squinted as he stepped onto the ramp. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. At the bottom of the ramp stood 2 tall figures. Tak caught his breath. Photos and videos hadn't prepared him for how beautiful the Vizari were in person. The taller one had skin that shimmered with blues and purples. Her eyes were like opals, changing color with each movement. A complex pattern of silver markings decorated her long face. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. "Welcome to Vizaria," she said. Her voice had a musical quality, and her words came through the translation device with perfect clarity. "I am Supreme Elder Rila. This is my assistant, Elder Mev." The second Vizari bowed slightly. His skin had more green tones, and his robes were simpler. Hannah stepped forward and performed the formal greeting they had practiced. She placed her right hand over her heart and bowed at exactly 45 degrees. "We bring greetings from Earth and the United Planetary Alliance. I am Ambassador Hannah Kim." Tak noticed with relief that the Vizari skin rippled with pleasant blues and golds. The greeting had been accepted well. Hannah continued, "This is Dr. Tak Lee, our cultural expert, and his assistant Jun Park." Tak bowed as he had been taught. It is an honor to meet the people who have brought art and wisdom to the stars for so many ages. Elder Rilla's eyes shifted to a deep purple as she looked at him. For a brief moment, Tak felt as if she could see right through him. Then her face moved in what he recognized as a Vizari smile. "You speak with knowledge of our ways, Dr. Lee. Few humans have taken such care to learn our customs before meeting us. The doctor has studied your civilization for years," Hannah explained. "He's our foremost expert on Vizari culture." Mev stepped forward. "Then he will be especially interested in his timing. You have arrived during our most sacred time, the celestial alignment. Our 3 moons will align in perfect harmony for the first time in 300 years. During this time, our most important ceremonies take place," Rila added. "Bonds formed during the alignment are blessed by the ancestors. Treaties signed now last for generations." Tak could hardly believe their luck. In all his research, he had only read about the alignment in ancient texts. "We would be honored to learn about your ceremonies," he said carefully. Rilla's skin shimmered with an intense gold. "Then learn you shall, Dr. Lee, more than any human before you." As the group walked toward the waiting transport, Tak didn't notice how the 2 Vizari elders exchanged meaningful glances behind his back. Nor did he see how Elder Rilla's eyes lingered on him with particular interest. He was too busy taking in every detail of this new world, unaware that he would soon become part of its oldest tradition in a way no human had ever imagined. The human quarters shone with strange blue light. Tak sat at his desk, reviewing the day's notes. After a week on the Vizari homeworld, his mind was full of new information. The Vizari have lived by the same rules for 10,000 years, he said into his recorder. Their society values order above all else. Change happens very slowly here. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. June stood there with an excited look on his face. Dr. Lee, Elder Mev has invited us to see the alignment observatory. No human has ever been allowed inside before. Tak jumped up, nearly knocking over his chair. When? Right now, Jun said. Ambassador Kim is waiting for us. They hurried through the crystal hallways of the guest palace. Hannah stood with 3 Vizari guides, her diplomatic smile hiding her nerves. There you are, she said. The Vizari are offering us a rare honor tonight. Elder Mev greeted them with a formal bow. His skin glowed a calm blue. The first moon begins its journey into alignment tonight. Supreme Elder Rilla thought you might wish to observe this event as part of your cultural studies. The group followed Mev to a tall tower made of the same crystal-like material as most Vizari buildings. Inside, a spiral ramp led upward. As they climbed, Tak noticed ancient symbols carved into the walls. These tell the history of past alignments, Mev explained, seeing Tak's interest. Each alignment brings great change to our people. At the top of the tower, they entered a round room with a clear dome ceiling. Strange instruments filled the space. In the center stood Supreme Elder Rila, her robes more formal than before. Welcome, humans, she said. The alignment is a time of great power for my people. The first phase begins in moments. Tak looked up through the dome. The 3 moons of Vizaria hung in the night sky. The smallest one was moving slowly toward the others. During the alignment, we perform our most sacred rituals, Rilla continued. Treaties are signed. Leaders are chosen. And most importantly, unions are formed that will shape our future. Unions? Tak asked. You mean marriages? Rilla's skin shimmered with amusement. Something like that, though much more binding than human marriage. The parties are joined not just by law, but by mind and spirit. A soft chime sounded, and all the Vizari in the room looked up. The smallest moon was now directly in front of the middle-sized one. It begins, Mev said softly. The air in the observatory seemed to thicken. Tak felt a strange tingling on his skin. The instruments around the room began to glow with soft light. The energy of the alignment can be measured, Raylat explained. It affects our world in real physical ways. This is not just superstition, Dr. Lee. Tak nodded, fascinated. On Earth, many ancient cultures built structures to track celestial events, but we never found proof that these events created measurable energy. Your scientists would find much to study here, Rilla said, her opal eyes fixed on Tak with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable. Later that evening, the humans attended a formal dinner with the Vizari Council of Elders. The food was strange but good, plants and fruits in colors Tak had never seen before. As they ate, Hannah tried her best to make polite conversation. She had been studying Vizari customs but was still nervous about making mistakes. Elder Rila, she said carefully, the beauty of your wisdom shines like the 3 moons in harmony. We are honored by your guidance. The room suddenly went completely silent. Every Vizari turned to stare at Hannah, their skin flickering with shocked colors. Tak froze. Something had gone very wrong. He quickly checked his translator, wondering if it had made a mistake. Rilla's skin turned a deep, rich purple. She looked at Hannah, then at Tak, with new interest. I accept your generous offer, Ambassador, she said formally. It is unexpected but most welcome. The timing with the alignment could not be more perfect. Hannah looked confused. I'm sorry, what offer? But Rilla had already stood up. She raised her hands, and all the other Vizari stood as well. Let it be known, she announced, that during this blessed alignment, a union has been proposed between our peoples. Preparations will begin at once. As the Vizari broke into what sounded like happy chatter, Tak leaned toward Hannah. "What just happened?" he whispered. Hannah looked pale. "I have no idea. But I think I just agreed to something very important." Neither of them noticed how all the Vizari were now looking at Tak with new respect and curiosity. Nor did they understand that the wheels of an ancient tradition had just been set in motion, with Tak at its center. 3 weeks passed since the dinner. Tak noticed that the Vizari treated him differently now. They bowed lower when he walked by. Some offered him small gifts, shining stones, and delicate fabric squares. He collected these strange presents in his room, unsure of their meaning. "Something has changed," he told Hannah and June during their morning meeting. "The Vizari look at me like I'm important now." Hannah frowned. "I've asked about what happened at the dinner, but they just say it was a blessed exchange. My translator must have made a mistake." "At least they're being nice," Jum said. "Yesterday, Elder Mev showed me their farming technology. It's amazing. Plants grow 10 times faster here." Before they could discuss further, a soft chime sounded. The door slid open, and 3 Vizari attendants entered. Their skin shimmered with excited golds and greens. "Dr. Lee," the first one said with a deep bow. "Supreme Elder Rilla invites you and your companions to the Temple of Eternal Union. It is a great honor. No off-worlders have ever entered the sacred temple before." Tak's eyes widened. "The Temple of Eternal Union. That's one of their most important religious sites." "We accept," Hannah said quickly. "This could be a major breakthrough for human-Vizari relations." The attendant handed Tak a small crystal card. "The ceremony begins when the second moon joins the alignment. Please arrive 1 hour before." After the Vizari left, Tak could hardly contain his excitement. "This is incredible. The Temple of Eternal Union is where they perform their most sacred rituals. It's mentioned in their oldest texts. Why now?" Hannah wondered. "And why are they suddenly so interested in you?" Tak shrugged. "Maybe they respect my knowledge of their culture. I'm not complaining. This is the chance of a lifetime." When the time came, the humans dressed in their formal uniforms. A beautiful crystal ship took them to the temple, which stood on a small island in the middle of a purple sea. The building looked like a giant flower made of crystal, with petals that reached toward the sky. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light. Vizari in formal robes lined the hallways, bowing as the humans passed. They arrived in a round waiting room where Elder Mev greeted them. "Dr. Lee must prepare separately," he announced. "It is our custom." Hannah looked uncertain. "Is that necessary? We'd prefer to stay together." "It is required for the ceremony," Mev insisted. "No harm will come to him. You have my word." Tak nodded to Hannah. "It's okay. We should respect their customs." 2 attendants led Tak down a separate hallway to a large room filled with sweet-smelling smoke. There, they removed his uniform and began to dress him in Vizari clothing, a flowing robe of silver material that felt cool against his skin. They placed heavy jewelry around his neck and wrists and painted strange symbols on his hands with glowing ink. "What does this mean?" Tak asked, pointing to a spiral pattern on his palm. "It is the symbol of eternal binding," an attendant explained while placing a circlet of shining metal on Tak's head. "You are being prepared for the highest honor our people can give." Tak tried to stay calm. This was all valuable research material. Still, something felt strange. Why him? Why not Ambassador Hannah? After he was fully dressed, the attendants led him through a series of increasingly grand hallways. They stopped before a massive door carved with the same symbols he had seen in the alignment observatory. "Beyond this door lies your destiny," one attendant said solemnly. "A union blessed by the alignment is the most sacred of all." The doors swung open, revealing an enormous circular room. Hundreds of Vizari stood in concentric circles. At the center was a raised platform where Supreme Elder Rilla waited. dressed in magnificent robes of gold and purple. Her skin glowed with a brilliant light that made her look almost divine. The attendants guided Tak forward. As he walked toward the center, he passed Hana and Jun in the audience. Hana's face showed pure horror. She shook her head and tried to speak, but a Vizari attendant prevented her from calling out. It was then that Tak realized something was very wrong. He reached the central platform and stood facing Rayla. Behind her, the 3 moons of Visaria were now perfectly visible through a crystal dome. 2 already aligned, the 3rd approaching. "Welcome, Takli of Earth," Rilla said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Are you ready to be joined before all our people?" And suddenly, with terrible clarity, Tak understood what was happening. This wasn't just a ceremony. It was a wedding, and he was the groom. Tak's heart pounded in his chest. The room full of Vizari watched him with eager eyes. Elder Rilla stood before him, her skin glowing with a bright purple light. He tried to keep his voice steady. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I think there's been a mistake." A murmur ran through the crowd. Ryla's eyes changed to a concerned blue. "Mistake? There is no mistake. Your ambassador offered you as a union partner during the sacred dinner." Her words were clear. Tak looked over at Hana, who was now arguing with a Vizari translator. Jun stood beside her, his face pale with shock. An older Vizari stepped forward from the crowd. "Perhaps the human does not understand the honor being given to him," he said. His tone was not kind. "I understand that this appears to be a wedding," Tak said carefully. "But we didn't agree to this." Ambassador Kim's words must have been mistranslated. The older Vizari's skin darkened to an angry red. "Words spoken during the alignment cannot be taken back. It would bring great shame to both our peoples." Rayla raised her hand for silence. "Let us pause the ceremony. I will speak with Dr. Lee privately." She gestured toward a side door, and Tak followed her into a small room. The walls here were solid, not crystal, giving them true privacy. "I see there is confusion," Rilla said. Her voice was gentler now. Ambassador Kim used the ancient phrase of offering. She said, "The beauty of your wisdom shines like the 3 moons in harmony. This is our most formal way to propose a union between houses." Tak took a deep breath. "On Earth, we would call this a cultural misunderstanding." Hannah didn't know what those words meant. "I suspected as much," Rilla admitted. "But the timing is critical. The alignment only happens once every 300 years. What does the alignment have to do with this?" Tak asked. Rilla's skin shifted to a deep blue. "There is much you don't know. The Vizari face a terrible danger, one that threatens all life in this sector of space. We have seen it coming for decades. That is why we finally reached out to humans after watching your kind for so long." Tak was confused. "What kind of danger?" "Our astronomers call it the void. It consumes whole star systems. It will reach our worlds within 5 years. And you think a wedding will help stop it?" "Not just any wedding," Rayla explained. "A union during the alignment has special power in our culture. It binds not just 2 people, but 2 peoples. The treaties and alliances formed during this time cannot be broken without terrible consequences." She moved closer to him. "We need human help to survive the coming darkness. Your technology, combined with our ancient knowledge, might save both our species. But my people will not accept a simple treaty. They need the symbolic binding." Tak tried to process what she was saying. "So this is a political marriage?" "Yes," Rella said simply. "Though in our culture, it is much more binding than what humans call marriage. There is a physical component, a joining of minds." A knock at the door interrupted them. Hannah entered the room, her face tight with anger. "Dr. Lee, are you all right?" she asked. "I've contacted Earth Command. They're demanding we return to the ship immediately." "That would be unwise," Rilla said. Her voice remained calm, but Tak could see fear in her eyes. "If you leave now, my people will see it as the gravest insult possible. Some would demand war." "War?" Hannah looked shocked. "Over a misunderstanding." Words have power during the alignment, Rilla said. And there is more at stake than you know. Quickly, she explained about the void and the danger it posed. Hannah listened with growing concern. I need to report this to Earth Command, she said finally. After Hannah left, Tak sat down on a bench made of the same crystal as the temple. If what you say about this void is true, we need to see proof, he told Rilla. I will show you, she promised. But time is short. The final moon will align soon. We must decide before then. Tak looked out a small window at the 3 moons in the sky. 2 were already perfectly aligned. The 3rd was very close now. He had come to study Visari culture. Now he was trapped in the middle of their most sacred ritual, with the fate of 2 species possibly resting on his decision. The human ship buzzed with urgent activity. In the main meeting room, Tak, Hannah, and Jun sat with Captain Mina, who had just received a message from Earth Command. Earth wants proof of this void threat before we agree to anything, Captain Mina said. They don't want to be tricked into a binding agreement. Hannah nodded. That makes sense. The Visari are ancient and clever. This could be a way to gain control over humans. I don't think Rilla is lying, Tak said. You didn't see her face when she talked about the void. She was truly afraid. The captain frowned. Fear can be faked. We need real evidence. A soft chime sounded, and a message appeared on the main screen. Elder Rilla requested permission to come aboard with Elder Mev. They had information to share. When the 2 Visari arrived, Tak noticed they wore simpler clothes than before. Rilla carried a small crystal device. This contains our astronomical data about the void, she said, placing it on the table. Your scientists can check our findings. June connected the device to their computer. The screen filled with star maps and complex calculations. Even to Tak's untrained eye, the data looked real and very concerning. The void will reach our system in 5 years, Mev explained. It has already destroyed 3 uninhabited systems at the edge of our territory. Why haven't you told other species about this threat? Hannah asked. We have, Rilla said, but few believe us. The void is hard to detect with standard sensors. By the time most races can see it, it's too late. Captain Mina studied the data with narrow eyes. If this is real, why do you need us specifically? You've known other races longer. Rilla's skin turned a sad blue. The Visari are old, Captain. Our civilization has been declining for thousands of years. We have knowledge, but we lack your human adaptability and fresh thinking. Our oracles predicted that the next void could only be stopped by joining with the young ones who adapt quickly, Mev added. When we discovered humans 50 years ago, we knew you were the ones the prophecy spoke of. So you've been watching us for 50 years, waiting for this moment? Tak asked. Rilla nodded. We needed to learn your ways first, and we needed the alignment for the binding to have its full power. Captain Mina sent the data to Earth for analysis. While they waited for a response, Tak took Rilla to the ship's observation deck. If I agree to this union, he asked, what exactly would happen to me? Rilla's skin shimmered with gentle colors. Our minds would be temporarily joined through a quantum link. You would experience my thoughts and memories, and I would experience yours. That sounds invasive, Tak said. It is intimate, Rilla admitted, but it allows true understanding between different species. After the ceremony, the link fades, but some connection remains. We would always be able to sense each other's strongest emotions. And what about after the void is defeated? Would I be expected to stay with the Visari forever? The union is permanent in our culture, Rilla said. But we understand humans have different ways. We would find a compromise. 3 hours later, Earth Command sent their answer. The data checked out. The void was real and heading toward inhabited space. Captain Mina called everyone together. Earth has authorized us to proceed with negotiations, but they want a formal treaty, not a marriage ceremony. Mev's skin darkened. That will not satisfy our people. The binding must happen during the alignment, which ends in 6 hours. There is no time to negotiate a complex treaty. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Tak. "What if I agree to the ceremony?" he asked. "Would that satisfy both sides?" Hannah looked shocked. "Tak, you can't seriously be considering this." "I am," he said. "I've spent my life studying other cultures. Now I have a chance to truly understand one from the inside, and possibly help save both our peoples." "It would work," Rilla said. "A union between a supreme elder and a respected human would satisfy the ancient laws." Tak took a deep breath and stood up. "Then I volunteer. I'll do it." The room erupted in surprised voices, but Tak had made his decision. He would become the first human to marry an alien, and possibly the key to saving both their worlds from destruction. Tak stood once again in the Temple of Eternal Union, wearing the silver ceremonial robes. This time, he understood what was happening. His heart beat fast, but he felt strangely calm. He had made his choice. The great chamber was filled with Vizari. Their skin shimmered with excitement, creating waves of color throughout the room. Among them stood the human delegation, Hannah, June, and Captain Mina, looking nervous but supportive. "Are you sure about this?" June had asked him earlier. "Once it's done, it can't be undone." "Unsure," Tak had replied. "This is bigger than just me. 2 species need this to work." Now, as the final moon moved into perfect alignment with the others, the ceremony began. Elder Mev stepped forward, holding a crystal bowl filled with glowing blue liquid. Since the first days of space travel, the Vizari have known that true understanding between different minds is the path to peace. Mev announced, "Today, we witness the first binding between human and Vizari. May it bring wisdom to both our peoples." Rilla stood across from Tak on the central platform. Her formal robes seemed to capture and reflect the light from the 3 aligned moons above. "The binding has 2 parts," she explained to Tak. "First, the physical connection. Then, the mental joining." Mev approached with the crystal bowl. "This liquid contains special particles that create a quantum bridge between minds," he told Tak. "It will only last for a short time, but the experience will change you forever." Tak nodded. Earth's scientists had examined the liquid and found it safe for humans. It contained no harmful chemicals, only strange particles they couldn't fully understand. Rilla dipped her fingers into the bowl and drew a symbol on her forehead. Then she did the same to Tak, her touch cool against his skin. The liquid tingled. "Now we drink," she said. They each took a small cup of the blue liquid. Tak hesitated only briefly before drinking it. It tasted like sweet water with a hint of electricity. At first, nothing happened. Tak stood there, aware of hundreds of eyes watching him. Then suddenly, the room began to blur. A strange sensation washed over him, as if his mind was expanding beyond his body. He felt a presence touching his thoughts, gentle but alien. Ryla's consciousness reached for his, and the world around him faded. Images flowed into his mind. He saw Vizari history unfolding like a fast-moving stream. A violent past where the Vizari nearly destroyed themselves in terrible wars. The creation of their ritual culture as a way to control their destructive tendencies. The first encounter with the void thousands of years ago, and the terrible losses they suffered. Each time the void returned, fewer Vizari survived. Their civilization grew weaker, their technology more focused on preservation rather than growth. Tak understood now. The Vizari weren't just ancient. They were tired, trapped by their own rigid traditions, unable to think in new ways about old problems. Then the perspective shifted. He felt Rilla exploring his mind in turn. She witnessed Earth's history, humanity's constant adaptability, their creative solutions to problems. A strange sensation of wonder flowed from her consciousness to his. The Vizari had never encountered a species that changed so quickly, that embraced new ideas so readily. Something unexpected happened. As their minds touched, Tak felt energy flowing between them. His human flexibility merged with her ancient knowledge. New ideas formed in the space between their joined minds, possibilities neither would have thought of alone. The void wasn't just a threat, it was a puzzle they could solve together. Gradually, the mental connection began to fade. Tak found himself back in his body, standing in the temple, but something had changed. He could still feel Rila's presence at the edge of his thoughts, like a soft echo. When he looked at her, her skin glowed with colors he had never seen before, colors he somehow knew meant wonder, hope, and excitement. "It is done," Elder Mev announced. "The binding is complete." The Vizari in the chamber let out a harmonious sound, their version of applause. Tak looked toward his human companions. Their faces showed amazement. Could they see the change in him? "What happens now?" Tak asked Rila. "Now," she said, her voice carrying new warmth, "we face the future together." 3 days after the ceremony, Tak sat in the human ship's medical bay. Dr. Jin checked the readings on her screen for the 5th time, her face showing confusion. "I don't understand this," she said. "Your brain activity has changed. These patterns. I've never seen anything like them." Tak nodded. He had felt different since the binding ceremony. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could still see flashes of Rila's memories. And there were other changes too. "Watch this," he said. He took a deep breath and focused. Slowly, the skin on his hands began to shimmer with a faint blue glow, just like Vizari skin. Dr. Jin's eyes widened. "How are you doing that?" "I don't know exactly," Tak admitted, "but I think the quantum particles from the ceremony have changed something in me." The door opened, and Hannah walked in with Elder Mev. "Is it true?" Hannah asked. "Rila says she can feel your emotions even from the palace." "Yes," Tak said, "and I can feel hers too. It's like having another person in the back of my mind." Mev studied Tak with great interest. "This is unprecedented. The binding normally creates only a faint connection between Vizari couples. But you and Rila." His skin flickered with excited colors. "The connection is much stronger." "Is it dangerous?" Hannah asked, concern in her voice. "I don't think so," Tak said. "It actually feels helpful. I'm understanding Vizari technology much better now. Things that seemed confusing before make perfect sense." Mev nodded. Supreme Elder Rila reports the same effect. She says human ideas now flow easily into her mind. Later that day, Tak visited the Vizari Science Center with June. The large building housed the most advanced technology on the planet. Vizari scientists worked at strange devices that hummed with energy. "This is where we study the void," explained the lead scientist, Elder Kai. His skin was a deep green, marking him as older than most Vizari. Kai showed them a large screen displaying the edge of Vizari territory. A dark emptiness was slowly moving through the stars, leaving nothing behind. "Our sensors can barely detect it," Kai said. "That's why other species don't believe our warnings. Their technology cannot see it until it's too close." Tak stared at the screen. Something clicked in his mind, a new understanding built from both human science and Vizari knowledge. "Your sensors use quantum resonance to detect space disturbances," he said. The words came easily, though he had never studied Vizari sensor technology. "But what if we combine that with human gravitational wave detectors?" Kai looked surprised. "That might work, but the systems are completely different." "I think I know how to connect them," Tak said. Ideas were flowing through his mind, part his own human creativity, part Rila's ancient Vizari wisdom. For the next few hours, Tak worked with the Vizari scientists, drawing diagrams and explaining concepts. They were surprised by how well he understood their technology. By evening, they had created the first prototype of a new sensor system. When Rila arrived to check on their progress, her skin glowed with bright gold when she saw Tak. "I felt your excitement from across the city," she said. "Your mind is shining." "The binding has changed both of us," Tak said. "I think this is what your prophecy meant about joining with the adaptive ones. not just an alliance between our species, but a true merging of our strengths. That night, in a meeting with both human and Visari leaders, Tak and Rila presented their findings. The new sensor system will detect the void from 10 times the current distance, Tak explained. That gives us more time to develop defenses. And we have ideas for those defenses as well, Rila added, using human AI systems combined with Visari quantum technology. Captain Minna looked impressed. You've accomplished more in 3 days than our scientists might have done in years. It's just the beginning, Tak said. He could feel Rila's agreement in his mind, a warm pulse of confirmation. Something new is happening between our species, something neither of us could have predicted. As the meeting ended, one thing was clear to everyone. The accidental marriage had created something powerful. The human groom and his Visari bride were becoming a bridge between two worlds, and perhaps the key to saving them both. 2 weeks passed since the binding ceremony. Tak spent most of his time in the great library of Visaria. The huge building held records dating back thousands of years. With his new understanding of the Visari language, Tak could read the ancient texts directly. I found something important, he told Rila one evening as they walked through the crystal gardens. His skin occasionally shimmered with a faint blue glow, a side effect of their bond that was becoming more common. What is it? Rila asked. Through their mental link, she could feel his excitement. The void isn't new, Tak said. It has appeared before, not just once, but every 3,000 years. Rila stopped walking. That cannot be right. Our history only records 2 previous encounters. The records are hidden, Tak explained. I found them in texts about the alignment ceremonies. The Visari have faced the void at least 10 times before. He led her back to the library and showed her the old books he had discovered. The pages contained star maps and records of ancient ceremonies, all tied to appearances of what they called the Great Darkness. Each time the void appeared, the Visari fought it, Tak said. And each time, they lost more of their people and knowledge. As they studied the text together, a pattern emerged. The Visari had once been much more numerous, with colonies across many star systems. But with each appearance of the void, they lost more territory. Their civilization shrank, retreating to fewer and fewer worlds. This is why our people became so focused on preserving the past, Rila said, her skin turning a sad blue. We were afraid of losing everything. But there's something else here, Tak said, pointing to symbols that repeated in many of the texts. These aren't just records. They're instructions. As he explained, Tak felt knowledge flowing from his mind to Rila's through their bond. The ceremonial patterns, the temple designs, even the words of the binding ritual, all contained hidden information about the void. The rituals aren't just traditions, Tak said. They're a way to preserve crucial knowledge across thousands of years. Your ancestors encoded what they learned about the void into your culture. So the true purpose of our ceremonies, Rila began, is to save your people, Tak finished. The binding ceremony especially. It passes knowledge from one generation to the next, just as it passed knowledge from you to me. They brought their discovery to Elder Mev and the human scientists. For hours, they examined the ancient records together. Hidden in the ceremonial patterns were advanced scientific formulas about space, time, and energy. This is amazing, Jum said as he helped translate the symbols into modern scientific terms. The Visari ancestors understood quantum physics in ways we're only beginning to grasp. But if this knowledge was so important, why hide it in ceremonies? Hannah asked. Why not just write it down clearly? Because knowledge can be lost, Rila explained. Libraries burn. Data systems fail. But culture, rituals that people perform generation after generation, that survives. Tak nodded. And there's something else. These texts mention a prophecy about the final binding that would allow the Visari to not just survive the void, but understand it. The final binding. Mev's skin pulsed with bright colors. There is an ancient saying, when the old joins with the new, darkness will give way to understanding. The old and the new, Tak said, looking at Rila. The ancient Vizari knowledge and human adaptability. That's why the binding between us is so strong, Rila said. Our ancestors knew someday we would need to join with another species to survive. They built that need into our most sacred ceremony. As night fell, Tak stood on a balcony looking up at the 3 moons of Vizaria, no longer aligned but still beautiful in the night sky. He felt Rilla's presence in his mind, her thoughts mingling with his. Together, they were unlocking secrets hidden for thousands of years. The accidental marriage had fulfilled an ancient prophecy. Now they just needed to use that knowledge to save both their worlds. 1 year after the binding ceremony, ships from Earth and Vizaria gathered at the edge of their shared space. The void was approaching, its dark emptiness visible even to normal sensors now. On the main Vizari ship, Tak stood beside Rila. His appearance had changed over the months. His skin now permanently had a slight shimmer, and his eyes sometimes shifted colors like a Vizari's. The bond between them had grown stronger every day. "Are you ready?" he asked Rila. She nodded, her skin glowing with determination. "The device is prepared. All ships are in position." Captain Minna's voice came through the communication system. "Earth fleet standing by. Good luck to us all." Over the past year, Tak and Rila had led a joint team of human and Vizari scientists, using the knowledge hidden in the ancient ceremonies. Combined with the latest human technology, they had built a special device. They called it the bridge. The void is not just emptiness, Tak had explained to the leaders of both worlds. It's a tear between dimensions, a place where another reality touches ours. And this contact destroys our space, Rila had added. But not because it's meant to harm us. The ancient texts suggest it's trying to communicate. Now they would test their theory. The bridge was designed to make contact with whatever existed inside the void, to communicate rather than fight. "All systems ready," reported June from his station. Over the months, he had learned to work seamlessly with the Vizari technology. "Activate the bridge," Tak ordered. The large device in the center of the ship began to hum. It combined Vizari quantum technology with human AI systems. Energy flowed through its crystal core, creating a signal that reached toward the approaching darkness. At first, nothing happened. The void continued its slow approach. Then suddenly, the darkness paused. The empty space seemed to ripple, like water when a stone is thrown in. "It's responding," Hannah said from her monitoring station. The bridge glowed brighter. The ship's AI, programmed with both human and Vizari communication patterns, sent simple mathematical sequences into the void. A minute passed. Then 2. Then something extraordinary happened. The darkness began to change shape. It formed patterns, first simple geometric shapes, then more complex structures. "It's talking back," Tak whispered. Through their mental bond, Tak and Rila worked as one mind. They guided the AI's responses, drawing on their unique combination of human intuition and Vizari ancient knowledge. Slowly, understanding emerged. The void wasn't a natural disaster or a weapon. It was a being, or many beings, from another dimension. Their reality occasionally brushed against our universe, causing destruction without meaning to. "They don't experience space and time like we do," Tak explained to the watching crews. "To them, our reality is strange and incomprehensible." The bridge continued its work, establishing basic communication. After hours of exchange, the void began to change. The darkness pulled back, reshaping itself to avoid inhabited systems. "They understand now," Rilla said, her skin glowing with joy. "They don't want to harm us. They just didn't know we were here." In the days that followed, the news spread across human and Vizari worlds. For the first time in their long history, the Vizari had not just survived the void. They had made contact with it. 1 month later, representatives from both species gathered in the Temple of Eternal Union. But this time, it wasn't for a binding ceremony. Instead, they signed a new treaty, the first of its kind between humans and Visari. Today marks a new chapter for both our peoples, Rilla announced to the crowd. Her skin shimmered with bright, happy colors. Together, we have done what neither could do alone. Tak stood beside her, his hand in hers. The accidental marriage that started our journey was no accident at all, he said. It was the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy and the beginning of a new future. As they left the temple, they looked up at the 3 moons of Visaria shining in the sky. Through their bond, they shared the same thought. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest misunderstandings. Behind them, human and Visari walked together, no longer separated by strange customs or different ways of thinking. And far above, in the space between stars, the void had become not an enemy, but a new frontier, another form of life to understand and explore. What happens next? June asked as they boarded their ship. Tak smiled, feeling Rilla's thoughts harmonize with his own. We begin again, he said, together.